Hello everyone, I'm Aaron Dusk, self-published author of The Mark of Emuli and The Varcross Key. If you want to know more about those books, check out the links below. I've done a lot of things in my professional life. I was a systems administrator, then a network administrator, and then I became a software developer. But before I was any of that, I was a writer. And after decades of existence, there have been precious few moments of happiness or security in my life. So many people have broken my trust, used me, hurt me, toyed with my emotions, made me think I was special when they really couldn't care less. But in that time, I've grown pretty much indifferent and detached from humanity as a whole. And while that may sound like a negative thing, I try to channel all of that into my writing. Every emotion and experience I've ever had gets distilled into 100,000 word reflections of who I am at the most fundamental level. I'm good and evil. I have compassion and disdain. I'm empathetic and apathetic at the same time. Everything you read in my stories is myself, shattered into thousands of different pieces and rearranged and repurposed to create something that's actually interesting, something worthy, something I've always wanted to be, and it's something that will definitely outlive me, or at least I hope it will. Many authors feel this way about their books because, in a way, our writing is who we are at the most fundamental level. No, we're not the racist, child-abusing stepfather or uncle in a contemporary drama, but there have been people like that in our lives that have forever left scars on our souls. People that come into our lives, both good and bad, shape the people we become. Through writing, we can take the worst moments in our lives and turn them into art, and turn them into things that people really enjoy consuming. Understanding that, it's easy to see why authors may become defensive about their writing. Because when you remove the fictitious elements of a story, you reveal something deeply personal. Something that we put on display to be judged by others in this three-ring circus we call a society. But that's art. And both the reader and the author need to understand where the lines of criticism and personal attacks can be crossed. What I want to discuss today is the author-reader relationship. There used to be an unspoken etiquette that an author is not to interact with reviewers, and reviewers are not to interact with authors. I say used to because in the last 10 or so years, everyone has become more and more terminally online, and the boundaries have shifted. Authors are more easily trespassing into reviewer spaces, and reviewers are trespassing into author spaces. With social media now a permanent part of society like an inoperable brain tumor, the lines are even more tempting to cross. So with that said, let's get into it. Over the last decade, author and reviewer interactions have been everything from minor annoyances to creepy to even being downright dangerous. As I mentioned in the intro, authors are very passionate about their books because they are usually extensions of ourselves. And this means that things can get really heated. It's like being in a road rage situation that just keeps escalating until someone gets hurt, either professionally, emotionally, or sometimes physically. As authors, we're told not to read bad reviews, but come on, everybody does it. Being a self-published author, getting those one-star reviews may have some valuable information on something I might be doing wrong in my writing that I could fix in another book. Sometimes I may agree with why the reader gave my book a negative review, but most of the time it's all just subjective. Do some of the reviews upset me? Of course they do. I'm human. But I've learned to just let it go because I myself have my own likes and dislikes regarding books. So think of it this way. If someone absolutely hates your book and most of your reviews are positive, but you have those few people that absolutely trash the shit out of your book, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They hated the tropes, they hated the dialogue, they may have been upset with a lot of the narrative choices. The list goes on. And you're probably thinking, well, this person just has no taste. Look at all my 4 and 5-star reviews. But ask yourself, did you ever absolutely hate a popular book that all your friends loved? Did you ever think, how the hell could everyone like this? Why does everybody have such bad taste? Congratulations, you just figured out that a book can be considered good by most people, but it could be the worst thing you've ever read. If you've got a book that most people enjoy reading and you get a negative review, it doesn't mean that your book sucks. It just means that that particular person hated your book. That's going to happen. That's going to happen regardless of what you do. It doesn't matter if you draw, dance, sing, play music, or make YouTube videos. If you're creating something, not everyone is going to like it. Art is subjective, as I'm sure you've heard many, many times. So thank God, because could you imagine how boring the world would be if it wasn't? We're already going through a time where everything in the mainstream sounds the same, looks the same, reads the same, because that's what's popular right now. It's easy to make money off of it. But could you imagine if that's all there was? Art, literature, music, and even society would have just stagnated long ago because there'd be no reason to innovate or progress. So we need those works of art that may not have mass appeal, that not everyone likes, because there will always be people who like and want more of something different and something new. So now that I've clarified the subjectivity of art, it's time to clarify proper etiquette for both authors and readers, because civility and tact shouldn't just fall on the author. Readers and reviewers have a duty to their community to be honest and try not to force authors into these spaces for drama farming or negative engagement. So let's go over some author etiquette when dealing with not only negative reviews but positive ones as well. And I'm going to do the authors first because, of course, I'm an author first and foremost, and I'm also a reader as well. So, number one, this is going to be the most important piece of advice in this video. Do not engage with reviewers, period. If you take nothing else from this video, take this advice to heart. You may be tempted to even like a review on Goodreads. I know I've done it in the past, but when I say don't engage, I mean absolutely nothing. No liking reviews, no replying, no private messages, nothing. Leave these spaces to the readers. You'll thank yourself later, trust me. See, when you interact with reviews either positively or negatively, you end up showing the would-be reviewers that you're constantly reading every review that comes in. I don't know about you, but if an author whose book I read was constantly replying and interacting with reviews, I would be less likely to leave a review of that book because I don't want to interact with the author at all. Even if I liked a book, I'll have rather critical opinions of what I just read because I'm giving my honest opinion about something. And I'll give an honest opinion about what I didn't like about the book as well as what I did like about the book. If there's even a chance the author is going to leave a reply to that review with something like, "You didn't understand my meaning," or whatever, I'll just never leave another review for that author again. In fact, I may never read another one of that author's books. It honestly feels like a violation. And being a reader and reviewer myself, I know that feeling very well. I often wonder if a lot of indie authors don't read and review other books, because if they did, they would understand how sacred the space is to readers. As an author and a reader, if I see an author replying to reviews, it shows me that the author maybe doesn't read and review other books, which could poorly reflect on their writing as well. So do yourself a favor, authors. Do not interact with readers on reviewer spaces like Goodreads. It's tacky, it's unprofessional, and it's a violation of the reader-author etiquette. Number 2, just walk away from negative reviews. If you read a negative review that pissed you off or really upset or hurt your feelings, just leave it alone. As I mentioned before, do not interact with the review, but also don't blast the reviewer on other spaces as well, like your Twitter or your Facebook or your TikTok or whatever. If you have a following, don't try to weaponize them against people who state their opinions on your book. Do not post a 5-paragraph diatribe with a screenshot of the review to your Twitter or your personal space. or your author space, I should say. If the review was a personal attack or if it's harassment, just report it and move on. These types of reviews are almost always removed by the admins anyways. Engaging in this way or weaponizing followers will not end well for you, and it certainly doesn't make you look good. A prime example of this would be the author Sarah Stuzek. I think I said her name right. Who put a reviewer on blast on TikTok because, of course, it's TikTok. Because the reviewer gave her a 4-star review. A 4-star review. You know, a really good review. The reviewer knocked a star off because she found the ending predictable. But overall, the review was rather positive. The readers seemed to really enjoy the book, and it was an ARC review. Okay, so you want ARC reviews to be as honest and objective as you possibly can, even the negative ones. It just gives more readers an idea of if they should buy the book or if they shouldn't. So Sarah was not going to take this 4-star abomination tarnishing her perfect 5-star rating sitting down. So she decided to call the reviewer a bitch, and things didn't end well for her. Her publisher dropped her, and her book was review bombed to all hell. So congratulations, Miss Stuzek. I hope this type of engagement was worth it. So this is the aftermath of this particular drama that had happened. As you can see from the article, that the article actually explains more of what happened. But if we go to her Goodreads, you can see the aftermath and the fallout of this particular incident. And a lot of these are rather, an attack against the author herself because of what she did, which, by the way, later on I'm going to say probably not a good idea to do this, but the damage has been done. As you can see, most of these reviews are not actually about the book, they're about the author herself. I really don't like this at all. I don't like reviews in review spaces being about the author and not the book. Feel free to trash the author, like on social media, or ratio the shit out of this author every time that she posts something. But these review places, these review spaces should be about the actual book and not about the author. So, but as you can see, this is kind of what happens. I mean, and it's something that you've got to be prepared for. If you're going to show your ass on the internet, if you're going to, bash reviewers, badmouth people who are reviewing your book, especially if they give you a freaking 4-star review, if you're going to be rude and put that reviewer on blast, you've got to own up to the consequences, and this is the consequence of that interaction. So, another author I think I've mentioned before is not so much famous as he is infamous. Most people who know this guy, it's not by his book, it's by how he engaged with his very few reviewers. And how he got those reviews was through a post he made on Reddit, of all places, complaining that he published this amazing book but can't get anyone to read it, and that he spent so much money on the editing and on the publication process, which I would believe as a self-published author, because it's very expensive. But when I actually read when I read the sample of what he's published, it really doesn't come across like that, or maybe he just got ripped off. I don't really know, but the book is not very well edited at all. So people on Reddit ended up reading it, and the results were not so good. And this author is J.M. Arlen. So instead of taking the quite constructive criticism on the nose, he then started attacking the reviewers. Then he started making fake Reddit accounts. And then Rachel from Reads with Rachel got involved, and it just turned into a mess for this guy. So now this is his legacy. As you can see, his books have been review bombed. And this is usually what happens. Of course, a lot of these ratings were removed by Goodreads, which good. I mean, these are usually ratings attacking the author himself, which I mean, I guess was warranted because he was saying some pretty nasty things on his Twitter. But keep that stuff on Twitter. Don't bring it into the book space. The book space, keep it. I mean, there's enough to criticize with this book as it is. Keep the reviews about the book and about his writing and stuff. Just don't bring the author's personal life into this, what the author does on his social media, whatever. This is not the space for it. This is a space for readers to determine whether or not they want to read the book based on the reviews. So, The Crystal Keepers, which was the main book that he mentioned in these Reddit posts, didn't get received the way that he wanted to because the book was not very well written, and this is now, I think most of the reviews, like the personal attacks, have been deleted by Goodreads, and most of these now focus on the actual review of the novel. And a lot of these are very scathing reviews, but I think the first review he got was actually a 4-star, but it was very, very critical. It was once again a 4-star saying, because the reason it was a 4-star was the reviewer didn't want to give a self-published author a low rating, which is understandable. I mean, I don't agree with that, but it is an understandable thing because you want self-published authors to succeed. So you don't want you to be the reason why they can't make book sales. But his review was very, very critical. He had a very long review about this book, and J.M. Arlen was not very pleased with this and decided to attack the reviewer, which then led to all of this mess. Since he hasn't been posting much of anything lately, I looked at his Twitter recently, he seemed to have disappeared from the planet. So I'm guessing that this form of publicity didn't quite work out. It could have if the author had a well-written book, but he had quite a few things working against him. Number 3, do not screenshot or post positive reviews into your social media or your website. This is just really tacky, and again, it's kind of a violation of the reader-author trust. This person, 9 times out of 10, did not ask for their review to be placed there for marketing a book, and if the author did reach out to the reader to ask if they could use the review, well, that's another problem in itself. It puts the reader in a very awkward situation. If you're going to put reviews on your website, book cover, Amazon description, make sure they're editorial reviews. These are reviews that you pay for because they're specifically for marketing your book, if the book is actually good. With editorial reviews, you're not paying for a good review. You're paying for a review, okay? So it would be unethical for these companies to sell positive editorial reviews, and if they did, they would not be considered trustworthy by readers, and word would spread, making their reviews absolutely worthless, which would then hurt the company in the long run, because what author is going to pay for a worthless editorial review? I sure wouldn't. So now let's get to the readers, now that I've raked the authors over the coals, because this isn't just an author problem, especially lately. So number 1, and this is going to be one of the most important things you as a reader need to understand, don't tag an author in a book review, like on Twitter or on social media, especially if it's a negative review. And do not send that author links to your negative reviews. The readers who do this are usually farming for negative engagement because you're now invading an author's space by soliciting unwanted interaction. Personally, I've never had this happen to me yet. But that doesn't mean there won't be some dumbass in the future who does this. Authors are not the key to your blog engagement or your YouTube algorithm engagement or your TikTok views, okay? If you're sharing a review publicly, you should be engaging with the readers, not the author. Don't send authors links to your reviews unless the author specifically reached out to you personally for an honest review and wants you to, send them a link to that review, whether it's positive or negative. Also, most of these book reviewers will usually ask whether or not the author wants to be contacted if the review is negative. This courtesy does not mean the reviewer cannot post a negative review. It just means that the author may not want to be tagged if the review is negative. Number 2, don't get angry if an author doesn't respond to a DM you gave them. I get a lot of DMs, and I decided to make a Discord server to alleviate some of this. Most of the time, authors have a very limited social battery, especially me, and I can't and won't respond to every single private message I come across in social media. Please don't take this personally, and certainly don't trash an author just because they didn't respond or didn't respond to unsolicited messages the way you would have liked. I personally interact with a lot of my readers because right now I'm in this Goldilocks phase where I'm popular enough to have a lot of engagement, but I'm not popular enough that it becomes so overwhelming that I have to shut down all communication altogether. If an author has a Discord server or message board they usually interact with, use that instead of sending private messages. It's just more comfortable for both the reader and the author, and it just makes things a lot less awkward. Number 3, do not harass or personally attack an author in your reviews. As I've mentioned before, these types of reviews will get your account reported and the review removed. This is unacceptable behavior, and no, you're not free to slander an author in their review section. If anything, if this behavior is severe enough, it could lead to legal action being taken. So be careful what you say about someone personally. Keep all reviews about the book and not the author. I know this is hard for a lot of you out there with these more prolific authors, especially the ones that take very public and controversial political stances. But book review places are for books, not politics. Feel free to bash said author on their social media because they're putting out public opinions on that platform. Engage there. Leave the review spaces to books only. And finally, this goes out to loyal fans of authors, especially more popular ones. Do not go after other reviewers who did not like a book you liked, and do not go after other authors your favorite author doesn't like. You can like an author and their work, but weaponizing your reviews while also attacking other reviewers does nothing but contribute to the toxicity that already exists among the book community. Recently, there's been this movement that reviewers who give 1 and 2-star reviews are terrible people, and that this is a form of bullying, and that if you don't like a book, you should just not leave a review at all. To which I have to say, absolutely fucking not. You as a community don't get to suppress someone's unpopular opinion because it doesn't align with yours. If someone did not like a book, they should be able to give the book the rating that they feel it deserves. Sometimes negative reviews can be helpful, and it may prevent someone from reading a trope or a scene they may not like, which will turn into other negative reviews, because people tend to read negative reviews before the positive ones. I know I do, and I prefer to read the 2 and 3-star reviews before the 5-star reviews, because more times than not, these reviews have the most objective and in-depth criticism of the story. So now that we've covered etiquette, let's go over the rating system. There's been a lot of debate and controversy over the 5-star rating system because it's almost impossible to distill everything about a book down into just 5 stars. There's plot, there's characterization, prose, and technique. And all of that has to be averaged out to form an overall opinion. But outside of places like Inkit and Royal Road, you won't have the option to rate based on different aspects of a story. The reason it always seems to come down to 5-star reviews is it's just simply easier for the reader to tap a star and leave. Reviews are already very hard to come by as it is because sometimes a reader doesn't have a Goodreads account, or maybe they aren't in the habit of leaving reviews or rating products on Amazon, so they just skip it altogether. So if you start adding complexity to an already rarely used feature, less people are going to use it. So I'll conclude with this. Authors and readers need to understand that there are boundaries that need to be kept. Authors can also be readers, which can sometimes blur the lines of what's acceptable and what's not. But as long as people are using these spaces as they are intended, everyone's going to be much happier. And as far as ratings and reviews go, readers, please leave reviews for books, whether you liked it or you didn't, especially if the book is self-published. Think about this. You probably came across a book and decided it was worth your time based on the amount of reviews the book had. Extend that courtesy to other readers and leave a review when you're done with a book. I cannot stress how important reviews are to visibility, especially if you love the book. If you loved reading a book by an indie author or a self-published author, and that author and story aren't well known, you should want to do what you can to share that book with other readers so that they can find it too. Leaving a review is a powerful way for you to help struggling authors find their audience. good or bad reviews will ensure the right people find the books that are right for them. So that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Just as reviews help readers find books, engagement helps viewers find channels. If you're also a reader and enjoy my writing and have the means to support my work, please visit my Patreon. My goal is to be able to write and do YouTube full-time eventually. I want to put out quality content and evolve the channel. Right now, it's kind of rough. The vision and format of my videos is kind of all over the place. The sound and video quality is kind of subpar. But with enough support, I can eventually start investing in better equipment. So as always, until next time.